Welcome to the Kingsbridge is Simple and Secure podcast, where we will discuss no building threats, no people threats, no third-party supplier threats, and no systems attacks. All these combine to create chaos for your business, and they will be battled by King Phoenix and his shield.
Hi, welcome to the KISSBCP podcast. I'm your host, Roswitha. Like and subscribe to the KISSBCP podcast wherever you listen or watch. And now, on with the show.
Hi, welcome to the KISSBCP podcast. I'm your host, Roswitha, and with me today is Eve Clements, and I'm excited to hear from Eve. She is a freelancer, and we're going to be talking about business continuity from that perspective. Welcome, Eve. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be here. My name's Eve, as you said. I'm a recent graduate from Carleton University as of June of 2023, where I kind of officially started my independent contracting freelance career post-graduation after doing kind of bits of contract work here and there, as well as like full-time employee work throughout my university career. So I'm definitely excited to be talking about this. I think that I'm lucky to have one of my contracts landing me in the field of BCP. So I think that this is something that I would have maybe not been super aware of before without having this contract, something that like maybe is important to me and in my business that I wouldn't have considered. So that's definitely lucky, but yeah.
All right. So I think what we're going to do today is we're going to let you kind of share your questions and concerns about what you should do, what you should know. And then any questions that you have, of course, I'll answer, and we'll just take it from there.
Great. That sounds great. I feel like business continuity planning is like often even ignored in like small businesses and like even more so in a one-person business, because it just feels like there's not that much at stake, I guess, or like, oh, well, what could happen that could keep me from working? Like, it's just me. Like all I have to rely on is me. But especially as the freelance market continues to get bigger and like more people are just like working remotely in general, but as it continues to get bigger, like people have more comfort in freelance work and also more reliance in freelance work. And so like when that type of field isn't prepared in the event of an incident and isn't prepared in the event of anything BCP wise, then I think things can get like a bit rocky, not only for the freelancer, but also for the people, the clients that depend on their work.
You're absolutely.
Thinking about the perspective of, like vendors and stuff, I was like, oh, wow, like it's not, I have to actually make sure that I have kind of like a plan B, which I wasn't thinking about. Because in theory, sorry.
No, that's okay. You're absolutely right. You mentioned something about like small businesses, and it's true. Even small businesses don't necessarily address business continuity. And part of it is if it's a small business and the owner's running it, they're too busy running operations to think about business continuity. Oftentimes, they have business insurance, or they should have business insurance, but the sort of practical day-to-day stuff always takes priority. So there's often not time and energy. And then there's the question of like, people always think, well, it's going to cost a lot. And I'm here to say right now that no, it doesn't have to cost a lot, not for a freelancer and not for a small business. So I just wanted to interject that into the conversation before we move forward, because that is often the thing that keeps people from pursuing this even train of thought in planning is fear of, oh, I don't have any extra money to do this.
Yeah, I don't have any extra money. I don't have any extra time. Like I just like can't. Exactly. That's definitely how I feel. Like I've definitely noticed like even kind of being my own boss is great, but that means there's so many more things to do outside of just like 9 to 5 working. Like I have to like think about so much other things that it's like that's way easy to push aside. And budget wise too, like I'm not in a place where I'm like want to prioritize spending money on like other things. I'm still building my repertoire, so I'm like, budget is a huge thing. But now again, like after working in this field, it's like it's actually not that huge of a thing, and it is easy to get it done very cheaply or free.
Yes,
which is good.
Cheap and free are good words in this case.
Cheap and free. Because in theory, like as long as I have power and internet, like I can work and I can make money. So like I think that's what causes freelancers to think like, oh, I don't need BCP. Like, I'll have those things always, but like, there's so many things that can impact those things, and so many things that when I look back have happened to me that have impacted those things.
Like what?
That I feel like my biggest concern probably is like illness, like personal sickness right now, just because I'm like still starting, so I'm still smaller. But I think my biggest concern would be like my health, because when I'm sick, like right now at this point in my career, like when I'm working, I'm making money, and when I'm not working, I'm not making money. So I think my health is probably my biggest concern in that sense. And like just a few weeks ago, I got the flu and I was like completely out, like couldn't go on my computer for like 4 to 5 days. And that's like hours and hours of
Huge.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like missing. And I don't want to miss deadlines during those times, not even for like, because I place a lot of priority in meeting those deliverables in a timely manner, but also because like I want to maintain those contracts and be flexible for those contracts. And when I'm not meeting those deliverables, like they're gonna go find someone else. Contract work is great, but we can also just like people can just let you go like that, you know?
So let's talk about what things can someone in your position do to minimize that risk. So business continuity is sometimes about transferring risk, mitigating risk, eliminating risk. And not every problem is going to have the same solution. So in your case, you can't eliminate the risk of being sick, right? I mean, that's not practical.
No.
You can, in your case, not necessarily transfer risk, but you can mitigate risk. And one of the ways that you can do that, there's actually a couple things, is in your standard contract with clients. I would check with your lawyer about what phrasing can you put in to give yourself a bit of a buffer for not necessarily force majeure type events, but common things like an illness that really just incapacitates you for a number of days. That's number one. That gives you legal protection from your clients. You may still lose a client, but you won't necessarily have any kind of legal implication if you miss a deadline, if this is written in your contract. The second thing I would say is, can you find another freelancer that does similar work that you have a personal relationship with, or that you can build a personal relationship with, where you have kind of a bilateral arrangement, preferably in writing, that you're not going to step on each other's toes and steal clients, but that if there's a need for a backup, let's say you have a death in the family or an illness that lasts 4 or 5 days, that you could, in some cases, transfer some work to this partner and they do the same for you. That takes a bit to build a relationship, but definitely if you're freelancing, you probably know of other people that are kind of doing what you're doing, that are in the same like early stages of their career like you are. And you could build that relationship with someone, develop a trust, and have a conversation about, hey, like this happened to me, I got the flu and I couldn't meet deadlines. And it depends on the kind of work that you do, of course, as to how feasible that is. But there are certainly things like social media work, for example, where there's templates and scheduling and things that are like kind of help automate the process, that if you did a little bit of training with somebody that you felt comfortable with, they could take that over for a little bit, you know. And there's always advanced scheduling and things that you can do for certain items, but I would recommend that as a possibility to kind of explore. Because building relationships is always part of business continuity, and it's always part of freelancing. And you might have a mutually beneficial relationship with another freelancer that can help cover maybe just the most critical contracts you have, the things where, you know, the work is something that you could temporarily transfer to say, hey, you know, can you get this letter out? Can you get out this newsletter for me? Here's the work I've already done. You know, that's something to explore.
That's a great idea.
And then I guess the other thing I would say is, as far as mitigating risk, we've got, you know, we're talking about you personally now, let's mitigate your risk. If you can't transfer the work to somebody else, and if contractually there's nothing that you can do but actually like provide the deadline. You know, there's only so much you can mitigate, but hopefully you have business insurance of some kind that will help in the case of a financial loss. And that requires great record keeping. So that's always something to kind of keep in mind, that in order to take advantage of the insurance that you're paying for, if you have an incident that's covered, you have to keep good records in order to make sure that they'll cover it for you. So that's a think ahead kind of a moment. So you've got your contracts with clients that can be modified or created anew. You know, going forward with new clients, you have insurance, and you have the possibility of mitigating risk by developing a trusted colleague that can temporarily take over certain kinds of assignments for you. So those would be the three main things that I would suggest in that realm. You also mentioned power. Things like power, like all I need is, you know, my laptop and power. And we've all experienced events of some sort that cause power outages. And I'm sure that you've had that happen before, and maybe your solution was go to the local coffee shop. I know it's been mine in certain cases.
Yeah. Yes, usually when it's impacting just like my area, my house, then it's usually pretty easy, depending on where you live, I guess, to go somewhere else and work. So that's an easy thing. But I guess when it comes to like, this is less power and more internet, but like the 2022 like Rogers communications outage. I think it was Rogers. Yeah, that happened when I was also living in Toronto, and I was doing kind of half freelance work, but also some full-time employee work. And I had no internet, and then also I had no service on my phone. So I couldn't hotspot myself, like I couldn't do anything. And so there was no way for me to do my work. And I was like, but that means it's everywhere. Like I was like, everyone uses Rogers. So I have to find somewhere that like not only uses a different internet provider, but yeah, like that was just a whole thing. I ended up working at my partner's office. He works at an engineering company, and I was coming in to do my little jobs there. And yeah, it was just like in times like that, it's like it does get less simple than just going to get a coffee. So less related to power, but yeah.
And the Rogers incident in Canada is definitely something to look at. It's a little different in the United States only because of the huge variety of providers. But if you actually have like cell tower issues that are shared cell towers, then we have the same kind of situation that could occur. You know, having a place to go, like your partner's engineering firm, having that in advance or coming up with it on the fly gave you a solution. Now, obviously, what I would recommend in general to freelancers is, you know, don't come up with it on the fly. Think ahead. Is there a place that you could go, you know, that is, you know, pretty much guaranteed to have a different provider, have different sources of power and of internet that you can use. Now, one of the power solutions could be is that go on Amazon or wherever and look for a battery backup. There are some that will power the basics, including your laptop, for not a lot of money. You know, obviously do your research on the technical specs and reviews and things like that. But that's also something to consider, that if you're in an area that really has a lot of power outages for whatever reason, that you've got battery backup. So that doesn't solve the internet problem, but in some cases, if you're working on a massive document for a client, you might not need the internet as much as you just need power to be able to like keep working on this like 40-page report that you're doing. So all situations are going to combine power and internet in the same way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's definitely like, is what is definitely different for freelancers versus like a full-time employee situation, because at least for me, like a lot of the work I do need internet like 100% of the time, but a lot of work that I do, I don't at all. I just need internet at the last stages of the process.
Right.
So as long as I can like, you know, deal with that incident or the risk of that incident happening before, you know, the final submission, then it kind of like mitigates the risk there, which is nice. And being able to bounce back and forth between like internet-based work and non-internet-based work, which also allows me to kind of like wiggle around a potentially no internet or no power situation.
No, that's really good. That's good.
Yeah, I feel like another concern I definitely had, I feel like we kind of talked about it a little bit, but like securing contracts, but also like maintaining contracts. I feel like we kind of had discussed a little bit about the maintenance side, like with the solutions you kind of gave, but also securing them. I think especially post COVID and remote work and people realizing that they can take a different path with their career and go more independent, it is becoming more of a thing. Which means that there's just like more of a market and more people that are offering freelance work. So it's like you kind of have to, I feel like, really be providing really good work that people want to choose out of this like wide sea of people that are offering the same thing. And so I think like when I'm like not meeting, if I can't meet a deadline due to an incident, I can't, invoice, I can't do these things, then like my clients may feel, or like, I don't know, my clients may feel as me, like see me as a vendor. And they're like, well, you're not prepared. You're not as prepared as we are. So we have to find someone who is that kind of thing. Like even with the Kingsbridge offers like a vendor BCP questionnaire just to make sure that your vendors are as prepared as you are. And even like a quick review of that, it's some of the questions are like, what is your recovery timeline if something went wrong, or if something was disrupted, like how are you going to prioritize your clients? And if I don't have the answers to that questions, how can I expect someone to pay me and choose my work over someone else's that maybe can answer those questions?
Well,
Yeah,
you bring up a great point, because the Kingsbridge BCP vendor checklist is a great resource that can be modified easily for someone in your situation. I mean, there's some questions that apply more to like larger companies, but you can extrapolate from them and think through your own scenarios and what can you do to reassure your clients, and that's something with, when you're looking for new clients, having some of those answers in the legal contract that you've reviewed with your attorney can reassure them that I have a plan. For example, having the battery backup. Sometimes you can do something about internet, sometimes you can't, but whatever you can kind of like extrapolate from that vendor checklist in your particular situation that you can do, like you can talk about your insurance, that you have this type of coverage. You can, have some caveats written into the contract that will protect you. So I feel like if you're bringing it up in the contract under business continuity, then that itself is going to distinguish you from many other freelancers that haven't given it that thought. So I think that right there is an edge for anybody who's freelancing, to even put that in the contract as these are the things that we do. And if they're hiring an independent freelancer, companies may have unreasonable expectations, but bottom line is that they really can't compare that to hiring a big consulting firm. Like those are two totally different things, and they need to realize that. But you can certainly distinguish yourself from your competition by being aware of BCP and making sure that your clients know that you're aware and that these are the plans that I have already made.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, then it allows you to think about it and you to feel more prepared about your work and your client's work in the event of an incident, but also you're right, like totally does set you apart. Like if you are looking for some like bigger contracts and it's like super competitive, like that's a great thing to include in that as well. It shows that you like are caring way more about your client's work and also your own.
And I would even add to that, not just the vendor BCP checklist information, but like, let's get specific about your disaster recovery plan for your technology. Because it's only your laptop, but you've got backups in the cloud somewhere. I would lay that out in your new client contract as this is my disaster recovery plan. We have not just on-site physical backup, but we have not one, but two cloud backups with different companies, for example. And that doesn't cost a lot to add a second cloud backup. Super easy to do, and it doesn't cost a lot. And that would be another thing that you could put in there to distinguish yourself from competition, who may have it, but they may not be thinking about the fact that they should advertise that to potential clients.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, like when you're prepared and confident in your, quick and speedy recovery, or at least the plan that you would have after that, like it just makes everyone else feel more confident in you too, and like your work and the deliverables that you say and will provide.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really great point. I really like that idea. Now I'm like thinking about my contracts that I need
There
to
you
update.
go. Yeah. Make a plan, talk to your lawyer and say, I need to review my standard contract to include language about these things, and have that in the works so that by the time you have a new client, that document's ready to go. Because it'll take some back and forth,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And some time to sit down and be like, okay, what do I even need to consider here? Like, obviously we've talked about like internet and potentially getting like business insurance or getting a backup generator or things like that. But it's like, there is a lot more that you can consider there as well. So I think like even just sitting down and being like, okay, what are all the potential incidents that could happen, but what is the major impact of those incidents?
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned
Like what's going to
backup
be.
generator. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just
You're
kind
on.
of like continuing on what I was saying, but yeah, the impact is the most important, I guess.
Yes. I was going to say, you mentioned backup generators, and that can be a solution if you have the budget for it. But if there's not a budget for a backup generator, those backup batteries just for laptop and basic needs, can be really helpful in a situation that is a little bit more short term than what a backup generator might provide. And then you also don't have to like go figure out the, gasoline or whatever it is that you're going to use to power that generator, depending on the kind you get. So I would definitely say, take a look at those backup batteries. And then if budget allows, the backup generator is great.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think those are really good points. I really hadn't actually thought about including BCP comments and an actual like outline of a plan in a contract before.
Mm-hmm.
So I am definitely thinking about that a lot more now.
Good.
Yeah, but I feel like those are at this. I feel like now after this chat, I'm gonna be totally like in my brain, like, okay, these are all the things now.
That's
But
good.
those are my major concerns, at least right now, and where I'm at in my work is just like I just want to make sure that I'm healthy, but then like what happens if I'm not healthy? And like can I make sure that I'm answering those questions? And I do like what you said previously about kind of having another like backup freelancer that you can kind of facilitate a close relationship with to take on some work in the event that you need it. I think that's really great, and also kind of like contributes to like spreading the word around like making sure that you're prepared too. Like if you're starting a community around your own preparedness, that kind of like facilitates like growth of like a preparedness of the whole field.
Yes. Which only helps everybody. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it is making up more and more of the business market of people working independently. So it's just like small businesses make up like most of the business market too. Like it's so important that you like are prioritizing those things. And I think it's just so easy to not think about, mostly due to time and budget and resources like that. But yeah, it's like super, super important, which I never would have really considered, or at least not at this point in my career.
Well, kudos to you for thinking about it and wanting to do something about it, because now you've got food for thought on different approaches that you could take and what fits my needs right now. And then, there may be some things that you back burner. Okay, well, I can't do this right now, but I'll take a look at it in 6 months or a year and see if can I make this bigger change, this bigger improvement at that point in time. But at least you're thinking about it, and protecting yourself legally is obviously very important. So I hope that this conversation has been beneficial to you and other freelancers who hopefully have found us on this conversation, because it's a little bit of a departure from what we typically do on the podcast, but I really hope that it's valuable. And thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It was definitely very valuable for me, and I hope that it is for lots of other freelancers out there, especially the new ones like myself, the little postgraduates that need all the help that they could get.
Absolutely. It is completely my pleasure to have you as a guest today. Thank you, Eve.
Thank you.
All right. Enjoy, everyone. Thanks. Have a good day.